How's it going, guys? In this video, we're going to be talking about the rule of threes in vertebral spinous processes. And the reason you need this is because the transverse process is not always at the same vertical or horizontal line as the spinous process. And so if you recall the common landmark that we use, where if you palpate and feel the inferior angle of the scapulas, and then you look at the midpoint of that, you're feeling the spinous process of T7. But in this picture, you can see T7 highlighted. T7 is actually above, like the rest of it. The vertebral body and the transverse processes of T7 are way above the spinous process you actually feel with your fingers when you're palpating. And so you need a way of remembering how the geometry or the relationship in space between the spinous process and the transverse process is affected as you move up and down the thoracic region of the spine. And so the way you do this is you basically take T1 through T12 and you're going to break this into threes. So you're going to have T1 through T3, T4 through T6, T7 through T9, and then also you do T10, T11, and T12 like this. And so the key thing to note here when you're doing this is to note that in T1 to T3, when you're looking at the spine, the spinous process is at the same level as the transverse process. So if you felt the spinous process, you would know that the transverse processes are going to be in that exact same level in that transverse plane with your thumbs. When you are looking at T4 through T6, you know that the spinous process is about half a vertebral body's unit length below the TPs, the transverse processes on these guys. And then when you're in the range of T7 through T9, you know that the spinous process is about a full body below the TPs of its actual vertebra. So T7 is a great example of this. When you look at this picture, you're going to note how you've got the two transverse processes of T7 right here, but the spinous process of T7 is about one full vertebral body above. Sorry about that. And so even though it looks like, you know, your T7 transverse process should be immediately behind the T7 spinous process, you're actually feeling the transverse processes of T8. And so that is a very important thing to remember. Now with T10, T11, and T12, you basically think like you reflect a mirror at this level. And so T10 is going to be the same as T7 through T9, and T11 will be the same as T4 through T6, and then T12 is going to be the same as T1 through T3. And so that is a fancy way of basically saying what we've already said, which is this guy, T7 through T9, is one body below. T4 through T6 is going to be half a body below. And then T1 through T3 was 0. So that means that your spinous process is the same level as the transverse process. So that is going to wrap things up for the rule of threes. I apologize if the Zoom wasn't perfect, but that is the gist of this. Hope it helps. Thank you all for watching.